The topic of today is renewing curatorial and institutional working habits. And during this conversation, we will discuss ways of redistributing curatorial and cultural power and look into the organization formats that can emerge from these acts of decentralization. We will also explore the concept of hospitality and we'll consider different actions that can lead to a more sustainable artistic future. So now we will start with you, Jussi, because Frame is quite of a powerful organization. I would say in the center of a capital city. How do you work with this, like displacing the power that you have?
Yes. First of all, I have to say that there's a limits in it, and the limits come. You bump into those limits quite quickly. What one program, like in a way that there's a lot of in the art scene, I think there's this kind of a idea of like you can talk something and then do something different, and that's something which is where the discourse or dreams of what you should do is built upon, that you are dreaming of something, doing something when you kind of phrase it into discourse, and then you are not doing it fully because you cannot do it. And we are doing it that all the time as an organization, of course, too. So I think the one thing is that what we've been trying to do to actually like first step is to kind of recognize that you have the power. You are well funded in compared to some other organizations. So I can say also Frame's budget is about €1,400,000 per year. So it's open information because it's a public funding. So basically, so you have the financial resources and other resources to do things, make things happen, and that's the power, I think. And then you can use it in different ways. One thing what we've been doing in this program quite a lot is that like to test out different ways of collaboration and invitation. We might have invited someone and gain them possibility to invite someone others. So the kind of curatorial selection power is not within us all the time. Of course, we are always can say that this collaboration ends here because I'm taking money out from you, away from you. I'm not paying any more this because you are not doing it well or whatever. So the power, it's always in the central in that sense. And I've been thinking about quite a lot about this, and then we go to the question of like maybe what has been dealt maybe in this kind of digital realm relationship to blockchains or whatever, quite a lot about this how to decentralize the funding or the kind of the financial thing itself through commons or through different thinking. But that the challenge is also that there's a legal restrictions and also like legal restrictions related to organizational formats. So in the organization, I need to be accountable of funding, like how it's used at the end, or my boss or the board of the organization at the end. So there's always kind of like how to get away from this situation that you are always hiring someone to do or paying someone to do something and not think about the resources what you have common or somehow shared, because it's not true. But then at the same time you want to think that there's a pool of resources, we can do whatever what we want to do for it. But at the end you come into this situation that some collaborators are asking that like, but like how much we can pay for this person, and I am the person who will say that. So this is a challenge and there's limitations, but I think if you try to test these limitations differently, I think it's also like working through, I don't know, like working through different formats within the organization without changing the legal structure. That's the challenge. And I think I just came to my mind, I quickly say that there's one residency project which is a little bit similar setting in Finland, which you are. And I think in there they realized that they have to have a little different kind of organizational forms or legal forms on top of it. So it was a business, so it was an association, it was a working group, it was like different things. And that allowed them to kind of juggle in between different things. A relationship to different fundings, and maybe different like power relationships.
Thanks. Now that we're talking about fundings, I mean, you mentioned, Gonçalo, that it was a bit hard to get public funded, and I was wondering, what do you think is relevant to the funders, and why have you reflected on that? What's going on? What's the
Yeah, it's very interesting in hearing Jussi about Frame, about then the funding is no limits, and it's quite interesting because we almost went from the opposite side. So when we started this journey, we even had discussions with Jaspis in Sweden. How could we make it a place that could receive international and be a place that even Swedish artists could come and use? How could create this link? And it was that gray area that we felt very much that we could not get the advice how to create it. And the way that we started this project was really with the needs that we have to stop almost talking and start to actions. And actions means to having a physical place to start receiving persons. Just for you to have an idea, in the last 3 years because we purchased this building end of 2018, we started in 2019. So the last 3 years, we had more than 500 artists coming and staying in our place. And that put us in the league that we could almost somehow compete, and I'll put it in a nice way, because of course there is no competition per se, but we could compete with the big boys, with the ones with money. And we felt that at the end of the day, a lot of money in projects were being put, I will not say the hard word and say that was badly, but was doing actions that was not done by people on the field that could feel what was needed. And by being in here, one of the realities that straight away myself and Linda and the artists have been coming was we were getting a constant liquidity of information about what was needed to make it more attractive and make things work in a way. And going back to the funding, we still have that difficulty, without a doubt. So we are still injecting partially private funding to make the whole project go forward. We are running on project base, so we apply for projects. When it's approved, we develop projects. For example, Konstfrämjandet, we have more than 45, 50 artists to come and live in the space. Each artist will stay in Moskosel around 1 month, and that was very rewarding. We connect with the locals. But was always the desire of not just talking to make it happen. And this kind of mix, and I understand what Jussi is saying about the legalities and what should you be? Should it be a company? Should it be a non-profit? Should it be an association? But at the end of the day, what I felt was that that was a very superficial conversation. At the end of the day, the artist needs to live. He needs to have money to pay for his work, needs to have money to put food on the table for his wife, for his family, or the opposite, or for his partner. So it was very important for us not to continue talking and start happening, and start making things happen. And the way that we have been flowing was that we have, without a doubt, creating opportunities for artists and even ourselves to be in this concept, to be in this mindset, to be in this environment. And if we can make it in Moskosel, showing a bit of the background, was a very popular village. The building that we are at the moment had more than 300 children studying in here. It was an old school and was shut down because not enough people were moving to the village, so the village was going down the population. Now we have totally the opposite. We have people moving. We have artists buying houses and moving to the village because of what we are doing. So it becomes a bit of, like normally they say, if you build it, people will come. It's like the reality. We have been doing it the hard way with our personal finance, but without a doubt, and we are striving all the time to have this connection between the private and the public. We believe the future, without a doubt, this connection needs to happen, the private and the funding, and the private and the public, for locations like us to continue. We're not 9 to 5, we are 24/7, 365, always open. And 9 to 5, it doesn't work anymore. Life moves fast.
I have a question to both of you now, because you're talking about collaborations a lot and long-term relationships, and I was just wondering what kind of long-term relationships you've been nurturing, and how and why and with whom. How do you choose?
So how to choose? I think one thing is that, like, sometimes like this curatorial decisions or whatever, they are like really hard to like pinpoint why this selection is here, and then we end up speaking about like how amazing that artist is, or something like this kind of a quality-based thinking or quality-based discourses, and I try to avoid that in a way. I think one thing is that what I mentioned earlier, that one of the selection criteria was also to look into like who were the people who frameworked earlier, and then thinking about who we haven't been working. That was really like somehow crucial, and I think about the resistance, I have been getting quite a criticism of not working with these people who was working with earlier, and also because if you stop doing some of these things, kind of try to break the normal cycle of power kind of rolling through, in a way, I think it's also about then, which is funnily like, because I was just reading like a few days ago this like a feedback survey kind of research about our programs and public image from last 3 years or something, and there was like comment which says that their programming becomes so marginal, and I feel like that that we have really succeed on something. We kind of been decentralized or displaced the organization a bit, and I feel like that's something really hard to do as a state-funded institution. And also they are in the middle of, regarding the hospitality, they are in the route of like pilgrimage routes to Santiago de Compostela, which is still active. So people, they get to know that there is this place where you can sleep, so they just, sometimes there are people sleeping with tents on the yard, so it's kind of this way of working. And also it's run by a British couple who came from UK and bought the old factory.
But Jussi, please don't get me wrong, because if we could not, or if we could do it without private finance, I would love doing it without private finance.
I understand it, but it's also interesting that like there is this interest towards openness, and it is there, and at the same time there is someone's money in it, or someone is owning it. And at that I will think about legal structures. There is an accountability comes from it, that you have accountability. If the house is on fire, it's your fault at the end, or something. So it's kind of, in that sense, it's the power and accountability is somehow limited to our legal structures. Maybe the question is that, like you also mentioned that, it's there's needs coming from the field in a way, or from the local context, and also like question is that then like how this national funder or whatever organization can know about those needs, and can kind of imagine what is needed there. And this is something. Yesterday I spoke a little bit about Luleå Biennial, and Biennial is a good example maybe about that. Like something is expected to come from internationally outside, but then there is local needs coming to it, and like how to balance this thing. And this is what frame when we think about national or regionality of something, whole Finland or here whole Sweden or whatever is the term, is kind of that like, then who knows about like what is needed, who has the like knowledge and understanding of that.
But that's one of the points that is very interesting about centralization and decentralization, because of course centralization in our view, and that's come a bit with the nationalism, that you have the central government controlling the whole country, is very unique and is very new. People think is normal, but it's not. Throughout social society and social development, society grew as being decentralized, people with their own village, their own clans, and so on. So this kind of sense that you have a government controlling the whole country somehow is new in a way, and somehow that's one of the setbacks that people need to understand. They cannot just have centralization when it's beneficial, and then, oh, they are too remote, we don't know how to get to them, or there is not enough funding to get to them. That needs to be a balance, and decentralization, or maybe decentralization could be a solution for many of those aspects, to know more what people need in each area, or having representatives there that can really provide information. And that's a very important discussion, maybe for another time that we could have, yeah.
So I think we're done. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.